Welcome to the Empowered Parenting for Emotional Wellness podcast. I'm your host, Dawn Day, a mom who believes in the power of education to bring hope and light to our families' lives. Through interviews with mental health experts and advocates, we will learn how to best support emotional resilience in our children, tweens, and teens. All right, today, everyone, I'm really excited. I have Kim Swaney here with me today, and I'm excited to introduce you to all of you. She's an amazing woman. She was a woman of vision here in Northern Colorado several years ago, and I got to know her back then. And she's doing amazing work on a ranch in Colorado with horses and teens. So can you tell us more, Kim, about yourself and what you've started out there?
Sure. We started about, we're going on year 7 now. Just working with the kids with the horses to develop a sense of wellness, absolutely wellness. And so it just kind of organically started. It was really, really cool how it just developed itself. Myself and Shauna White are the co-founders of it, and it is Happiness Through Horses. And we recently were able to, my husband purchased a ranch. We've been working off other people's properties for several years, and it was so kind of them and wonderful, but it got to the point where we couldn't grow. And the growth for mental wellness in teens right now is imperative. And so it's definitely a labor of love. So we're very excited about the future of the Happiness Ranch and Happiness Through Horses, and being able to expand programming and expand our mission and things like that. So
you're serving, is it troubled teens, or is there a specific population that you're serving, and what ages, and about how many kids do you have coming out there, and what are you trying to do?
So it seems to me that most teens are troubled. So, our verbiage is struggling youth. And I don't know about you, but every youth I come across is struggling with something. And 99.9% of the time, it's something emotional, especially during COVID. So our mission states teens. However, we do and have worked with younger population and hoping to expand our mission in the near future to young adults. The young adults have been coming out and they come to volunteer with the teens or the animals, and they just end up staying because it's psychologically healing for them.
Very
so
cool.
That's something that's pretty exciting.
What are the struggles? Because you say they're struggling teens.
A typical one would be struggling with relationships, whether it's because of bullying or family relationships, or maybe they're a foster child, or maybe they have a blended family and they have step brothers or sisters that are difficult. I mean, it goes on and on and on, but I think relationships are the biggest struggle for our teens this day and age. And trust and realizing that they're important and they matter. So those are some of the biggest struggles psychologically.
So would you say that the state of mind that a lot of teens are in is depressed? Because that's what I think is the bottom line.
Absolutely.
What do you see for signs of depression in these kids? Like, what's going on? How's it affecting their lives?
Anger management issues, self-mutilation, self-harm, isolating themselves, or from being isolated, it's really hurting them. But those are a couple of the top things that you see is anger, because they don't know how to express themselves, or they don't have a safe place to express themselves. They don't have anybody to really just listen and not judge them. They're not told consistently enough that they matter. Many things. And so it affects their relationships, and it comes out 9 times out of 10 is anger. So that's what we deal with a lot with these kids. It's either anger or they're shut down. They just won't say anything.
So it's either one extreme or the other. So they're either outbursting or they're withdrawn, basically. Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely. That's a good word, withdrawn.
So most
especially
of them,
in this day and age during isolation.
Right. So can you talk about how you're using the horses to help these kids heal, and what kind of programs you have, just in a nutshell, and how the horses and the teens are really an amazing match sometimes for healing.
They really are. It's some of my favorite transformations are made when you see that moment that they feel like they're trusted, or that they're trusting another soul. It's really quite cool. So I don't like the word using, but work alongside the horses. The horses are, we are all employed with this mission, including the horses, and we got some other animals too that we're actually throwing in the mix just because some kids love them. So anyway, horses are amazing for building trust, because if you come in with anger or a problem, or you're shut down, then the horse is not going to interact with you in a good way. And so, myself or another mentor being the guide to show how to establish a relationship in a strong way. Our main modality, if you will, is self-leadership curriculum. And by self-leadership, I mean things like anger management, conflict resolution, taking care of your body, because nutrition is really a tough thing in this day and age for teens, and that affects a lot of mental issues. Just learning how to set boundaries, that's a big one. So through all these self-leadership curriculum modalities, we take the kids and the horses and put them together and do sessions around those topics. And it's been extremely successful with that. So it's also a good way for them to tell secrets, or someone to talk to that they feel safe around. So had many tears cried in several of the horses' manes throughout the years.
I've known a lot about therapeutic riding in this area, and there's a lot of horses that we have around here in northern Colorado. A lot of people own them. There's a lot of riding centers, and I've realized that the horse is not judging you, because when you have parents, they're disappointed in you because you're not living up to their expectations, and everybody's just, they feel judged, I think, when they're acting out and they're making bad choices and doing things that you would not
Absolutely.
expect or whatever. And the horse doesn't really care about that. So can you talk a
No,
little
the
bit
horse
about?
does not care about that.
Yeah, the horse is just
The,
like, I have my needs, and but horses are pretty intuitive animals, though, aren't they?
they're extremely intuitive animals. I believe that all animals have a purpose on this planet, and I believe horses and dogs, especially horses, we're put here to be our soul animals. And what I mean by that is to be in touch with our feelings, that they are our partners in that realm. And so horses, they all have their personalities, right? They all are different, just like people and kids. They're all different, everybody. But there's some basic attributes that they all possess. And one thing is, they're not so emotionally involved in a situation, so they're not going to make decisions. They're flight or fright. They're either going to stay and deal with it, or they're out. So you need to really learn what that means, and how each horse is different with that. So I think it's important for these kids to have a relationship with an animal that isn't emotional like that. I mean, you always got to be on your toes with horses, but you pretty much know what you're going to get. You know how to be safe, and that they're going to listen to you and not judge you and not talk back. And so it's pretty cool.
So do the kids, are they taking care of the horses, like brushing them? Are they learning to ride? Is learning to ride maybe one of the challenges there that helps them to, maybe acquire a new skill that gives them a little more confidence? Something like that. Is that part of your
It
program?
can be. We have the whole spectrum. We have a spectrum where some of the kids, I've had kids that come out and just sit in the feeder and watch the horse eat, and then they feel a lot better, or maybe they're talking to them. Sometimes I leave them. Sometimes I don't. Sometimes I'll ask for to talk to me while we're in the presence of a horse. And I'll say, I won't judge you just like this horse won't judge you. And I'll use those similarities, and so to build their trust with me as well, or another mentor. But there's also sometimes these kids need a little tough love, and get in there and do some hard work. I have one young man who comes, and if you got a T-post to pound, he's your man. He loves to be physical and he likes to do hard work. But he also, it took me about 5 sessions to get him to open up completely, and he's a completely different kid now. A lot more loving and dealing with his challenges in healthy ways. And then there are some kids that need to be on the back of the horse. So I would say 75% of what we do is on the ground. And then, there's advancement, of course, and then there's rewards for being your best self and things like that. So we don't not only use it for teaching and training, we use it for a reward system as well. I mean, there's so many good things that come out of actually being able to get on the back of an animal and feel that freedom. Yeah. So, and it also helps with your body and your balance, and you have to be centered. And that's another thing that the horses really teach these kids, is to calm yourself and to center yourself and let everything go at the moment. When we're ready to talk about it, we'll talk about it. But if we're going to be working with this animal this close, you need to be centered and focused. And that's a big challenge for some kids, is to focus.
Very cool. Well, I know it's short attention span theater out there, especially with kids being online all the time. They're here, they're there. I mean, it seems like, their attention span has been decimated by online, because it's so quick here, quick there, go there, go there, go there. They can't just focus. So I think that's not helping anybody, especially if you have emotional issues. It's just making them worse. So, okay. So do you know how many riding centers like yours are there out there? Are there a lot of them nationwide, or is it a common thing out there to find a center like yours that specifically works with teens and horses?
There's actually quite a few. We're building a referral list that will be on our website hopefully this year. And we want a resource center for parents and for people that want to figure out where they want to give as well. And so there are a lot, especially in this area, there are a lot of horse-centered, and I don't want to always say therapy, because we're not therapists, and we honor the therapists that these families do have. They're very, very important people. This is just another aspect or leg, if you will. But there are so many different ranches. I work actually close with a few. I work with a veterans group that I love very dearly, Stillwater Ranch out in Loveland. Yeah, they're my fave. Anyway, their Agala training is next to nothing. They do such an excellent job. And there's probably a good dozen of them around here, and everybody has a little different spin on what they do, how they do it, who they serve, and how often they do it, and how far they're progressed. And you have your other center in Loveland, Hearts and Horses, that have been around for 30-something years, and they're doing enormous amounts of work. But has a much broader mission.
If you were to tell someone, let's say if they're in Kansas or wherever, Wyoming or any other state, what would they look up? What would be the keywords to look up if they wanted to find a center like yours?
I would put kids and horses, therapy and horses. I mean, there's a million different ways you could search that. I have a lot of kids that come here, and if they hear the word therapy, they're not coming back. And it's just really sad, because therapy is so amazing.
You're saying this is sort of an in tandem support in addition to therapy, and maybe it doesn't replace therapy, but it at least augments it and supports what they're already doing elsewhere with that heavy duty work. But this might be a different way of kids getting an emotional outlet that really might resonate with some kids more than others, which is great.
And it seems to be more and more that's the case, is the coaching and mentoring avenue seems to be something that they respond to.
So do you know if it seems like kids are just so much more depressed than ever before. Do you know the statistics on how depression and or suicide rates are rising, or how they might have changed lately?
They've changed drastically, actually. You know, the last statistics, hardcore statistics I had, are from 2018. Not a lot's coming out of 19, but we were seventh. Colorado, were seventh in the nation. We would toggle between ninth, eighth, and seventh in the nation for several years, and Colorado has, I think now we're like fourth. I mean, it's ridiculous how much it has escalated.
What's going on with
Well,
kids?
I think the number one factor is the lack of contact with their friends. Now, you know, as parents, we're like, well, that's not the most important thing. Your grades and, you know, your health and all this is important. But I am here to tell the world that suicide has taken over as the leading cause of death in teens in our surrounding area, and that's just not okay. It went from, you know, being second or third to first leading cause, and it's due to depression. And I think a lot of that comes back from not being able to spend time with their friends. I raised three girls that were all emotionally different, and they're different in every single way. But the one common thing with all of them is how close they were to their friends. I mean, they would, of course, watch movies and play video games and go skateboarding and do stuff, and they hang on each other. They have that contact, and it's a human need when we're growing and developing as teens. And so for them not to have that on the level they did, they don't even realize, half of them, that that is depressing them in ways that they never could fathom. And so I think that is the biggest thing, is the lack of interaction with people that they consider friends.
So,
Um,
well, so it's
I
really bad
think
right now with COVID, obviously, but do you think online, Kim, do you think online interactions do not replace in person? Do you think that that's starting to affect, interpersonal? Because it's not the same if you're getting likes and you comment and you do this and that. It's not the same relationship as hanging out with a friend, going downtown and having an ice cream and hanging out and laughing. And you know what I mean? Do you think that has something to do with all of this? You do.
it absolutely does. It's our number one leading cause of depression that is leading to suicide. So not having that, and there are even things like the kids being able to hang out and talk about, you know, the test in math class. And some kids are on that side of things where their school is important to them, and because of academics or sports. And that's another thing, is they're not being able to explore at this young age what brings them joy and what brings them happiness. It's like, what makes you happy? That's my biggest thing, is when we teach our sessions, is we're asking these kids to put tools in their tool belt or their box, whatever they choose, of things that bring them joy, right? So when you're feeling down, you feel those feelings, but then you get yourself back up by this tool.
I mean, it used to be, generations ago, people would be like, oh, they would call you selfish if you were pursuing your own happiness, kind of thing. And I think that it's essential to the core of being human and being self-actualized and being healthy if you are emotionally happy. So I think that's what's happened, is they've gotten to the state of the total opposite of being happy, is being completely depressed. And so the pursuit of happiness is really what we should be going for, is what brings you joy in your life, because that's really what's going to save
Absolutely.
these kids, right? I mean, I've,
That's what's going to save these kids.
yeah, and I've had depressed children myself, and it's really hard to motivate a child who doesn't care about anything, because when you're depressed, you don't care, and it's really
Mhm.
hard to self-motivate, to pull yourself up by the bootstraps, because you don't have any boots at the time. So you can't even.
They don't have any boots, and they don't understand why they should care. So that's a big thing that we do also, is helping them figure out a purpose. Why am I here? Why don't I understand these things? And so that comes back to working with the horse. and your purpose is coming back to center and calming yourself. And here are the tools you use to do those things, whether it's through breathing exercises or tools like music, and that was one of my thoughts, is if they're not allowed to explore what makes them happy, like music and the arts and sports and things, and all these things include being around other people, being at a football game, being at an art festival, being at, in music class, whatever it may be, they're not able to interact one-on-one, or I shouldn't say one-on-one, but face-to-face is what I meant, to explore these things. And that's one of the things that we did with our girls growing up, is let's figure out what you like. Let's try a bunch of stuff and figure out what you like. And then that's how we'll move forward, because that's what you chose and it makes you joy, not because it's something that somebody else or your parents wanted. Right. And that was really important in their emotional well-being. And kids aren't getting that this year. And there are some kids that are on the cusp, like the junior high going into high school. That's a hard time if you're not able to explore different sports and such. And then the seniors that aren't able to finish out things that they have worked so hard for. I mean, that right there is a depression thing.
Well, it's a loss. It's a loss.
So yeah, not being able to explore things, it's
right.
huge loss, and it's traumatic. So that's another thing, is we use the horses, we work with the horses to understand trauma and teach them how to feel those feelings in a healthy way.
Right.
So,
because I feel like if you don't have tools, what happens is it becomes so painful that all you want to do is make it go away. So you repress it, or you find outlets that numb you, like drugs or alcohol or unhealthy things, that because you don't want the pain and you avoid it. But really what happens when you're
I call
traumatized,
that looking for love in the wrong places,
Yeah.
That's something, as I was growing up, I was traumatized by my own actions. I had an unhealthy childhood, but looking for love in the wrong places, and you could replace the word love, which, I mean, I'll never do, but looking for joyful things in the wrong places. And that is, that's a killer right there.
Well, it is. And really the way to get out of it is to stop repressing it and stop making the choices that are unhealthy, and to divert and use the healthier tools so that you can start to heal. Because you cannot make pain go away if you don't address it, right? You have to deal with 100%. It. If you keep repressing it, it finds a way to keep coming back. And you can say, oh, I feel fine now, and it's gone. And no, it's not gone, because you never dealt with it. It'll come back in a few years or whatever. So that's what I've seen is, unless you really truly get in there and dig deep and start talking about it, or start, trying to process and find other ways to deal, it's still going to come back. So I think these kids just need a lot of help and love and support. So do you have advice for parents, because it's so hard, and maybe not just, necessarily around COVID per se. I mean, because we know there's a lot of isolation and things there, but to help kids fight against the stressors that create depression, and to also find that happiness. Like, what would you say to parents? Because you've gone through it yourself as a parent, and you deal with so many teens so every day. And so what would you say for some advice?
What a great question. Because I don't just deal, or the mentors, we don't just deal with the kids. We don't just help the kids. This is about the whole family. And 99 times out of 100, I am advising or helping one or both of the parents through these processes as well. So, I mean, I have a list. We can be here another hour talking about, the tips I would have. So let's just do a couple. And my favorite one, my biggest one that I tell people is just listen. Listen to your kids. Listen, even if it doesn't make sense, even if you don't agree with it, it doesn't matter. Just listen to what they have to say, and then take some time to think about that. And then the second thing is validate their feelings. Well, I don't think you should be angry about this or that. That's not That's not how it goes. You have to, I understand you're angry, so let's talk about, what to do about that. So validating their feelings. And I think that is hugely disconnect between parents or guardians and kids, because I don't work with just parents. I work with a lot of kids that have guardians, so to speak,
Yeah.
or that are adopted or whatever. And a lot of these parents are like, these kids aren't listening to me. Don't stop. Tip number 3. Don't stop telling them. Don't stop telling them they're important. Don't stop telling them that they matter. Don't stop giving them the advice. Don't hang out with, crappy people, whatever your advice is, because you don't think they're listening to you. They're listening. I promise you they're listening. So don't stop telling them things. Don't hound them. And here's something that with my middle daughter, she was, suicidal and challenging, but everybody told me, oh, she's just being a difficult teen, or she's just being a kid, she'll get over it. It's just a phase, all this crap. And I knew down deep in my heart that wasn't the case. My girl needed some help, and she needed me to sit by her door some nights. Yeah. So I did. And so don't let anybody tell you, it's okay to have your friends in your village and to have them support you and tell them what they did to help, and all that's fine. But if you feel in your heart of hearts that there is an issue that needs to be dealt with that could be dangerous for your child, pursue it. Do what you feel that you got to do to keep your kids safe.
Yeah.
So
that gives me chills, honestly,
one,
because
listen to them.
Listen to them and listen to yourself. Listen to them
listen
and
to your gut.
Yeah.
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 But by all means, don't be a helicopter parent. Let them learn some things on their own.
Right. I get it. So, what about, so that's great if your child wants to talk to you, tip 1 and 2. But what if you have someone who doesn't want to even talk to you? Like, what would you say about that? Because I know, like tip 3 would fit into that. Like, okay, keep talking to them. They are really hearing you deep down, even if they don't acknowledge it. But what are some tips maybe for getting someone to open up to you? Because maybe it is a trust thing. They think you will judge them. I'm not sure why.
So maybe it's not you. So in that case, my suggestion or my advice would be to take yourself out of it. It's not about you. It's about them. They're not wanting to talk to you for whatever reason. That can be, dealt with through therapy or through their healing. Find somebody they will talk to, an adult. Okay. Find somebody, and that's another thing is a lot of parents tell me, they'll talk to you. I know that they feel better after they've been with you or one of the mentors. It's kind of like the big brother, big sister type of thing. Find somebody, a school counselor, an aunt, or a grandpa, or somebody at one of the centers like this. Be enough for them to take yourself out of the equation when it comes to sharing. They won't talk to me, they won't tell me. Well, then find somebody they will tell, because they have got to deal with it. Because if they won't tell you and they're keeping it in, then that's not good.
Right. Because again, repression is never the right way to deal with it.
Right.
It doesn't, it just stops it. It makes it worse, pushes it down for another day, basically. And I know that very well.
So that leads to, real quick, a thought I have of that is we have a generation of adults that were not able to deal with their feelings or whatever it was that was challenging them as they were growing up. And now we have this group of adults that can't deal with pain or rejection or things like that. And then they're not the leaders we need them to be in our society, in our communities. And so that is the goal of these kids, to give them those tools to be the leaders we need them to be. And I think that can only be done through self-leadership.
Very cool. And so you are basically helping the next generation to have healthier families, period.
100%. Our communities need that. We need healthier people out there. I love people. All shapes, sizes, you name it. I love people. But we're in a crisis right now with a couple of our generations because of their lack of ability to deal with rejection and anger.
Yeah, and they're seeking validation online with those little likes and hearts and emojis, and it's like, oh my gosh, this does not fulfill you at all. If you get 100 likes on a comment versus, having that true relationship with real people, I think that it boils down to authentic healthy relationships, period. Don't you think?
And some people just simply, they don't relate well to other people. That's okay. Well, if they learn to relate to a horse or an animal, then they're able, that's one of their tools, so they can still be, good leaders in our community if they have other outlets. It doesn't have to be a human.
Right. And so what do you think is the importance of having good leaders in our community? What does it do, having poor leaders versus good
um,
leaders? What
but
changes?
the, the one that brings me back to the old like cowboy ethics type of thing. That is one of my favorite words, ethics. So having a community full of strong leaders that have strong ethics is something that we're lacking. And that is really a goal. If you don't lead yourself and care about what happens to yourself and how you present yourself to the world, how are you going to be a leader in that world? So when you have someone coming out of the gate strong, believing in themselves, then they lift other people up. So strong leaders in our community support other people in a way that makes them feel or want to be successful. And then we can help each other more. So it's my philosophy that we're on this earth all, number one, for each other.
Mm-hmm.
That's just, I believe in that across the board. We all have our individual little purposes and things that bring us joy, that help others or animals or whatever it is. But number one, bottom line, we're all here for each other. And if we can't be kind and love one another and lift and support each other up to create success in our communities, then we're not fulfilling our one and only and most important purpose.
Amazing. That's profound and so true. And I think if we start moving that direction, there can be a lot of healing individually with kids, families,
Mm-hmm.
our society, our world. I think we're broken at this time in general. There's
We
a
are
lot of
broken.
brokenness, and it's sad to see our kids hurting. It breaks parents' hearts. And I've been heartbroken from my own children's struggles and everything. And I can tell you, the online world is not, I'm not a fan. I'm not a fan. It's vapid. It pulls them in directions they shouldn't go. There's support for very toxic behaviors there, like pro-suicide groups. And, it's just awful. So the more that we can get them to be into healthy relationships, the better, I think. So that's what you're
Mm-hmm.
helping
I
over
think
there.
human contact. We need contact, and if we can't be human contact, we got to have contact with these animals. It's smelling, touching, seeing, all the senses that we have as a human, to be able to use all those on another soul or with another soul. I think that basic, if you were to get really basic and not even talk about all the emotional stuff, but just that contact. Now, human to human contact, I think, is the most important. But if we're not able to have that, at least get them out to animals. And it doesn't work for all kids, but it works for most. So, and most animal relationships are not toxic. and
Right.
I'm all for technology. I get it.
Yeah.
This is wonderful that we can meet this way.
Right.
It's convenient, but there is a line that has been crossed where it's too much.
Yeah.
And there's not a balance. So that's how I see society, is we're out of balance. And I can turn this around to something very positive by saying, what an amazing opportunity we have to make a difference. What an amazing opportunity we have to change a life and to watch transformations before our eyes of people that want to go out there and be better. So let's turn it around, and let's be positive and take the opportunity to make an impact that we know we can. So that's my positive spin on it.
Yay. Well, that's why you do what you do. You obviously have a heart for it, and you're an amazing asset to this community and to our world. And I just think the world of you, Kim, because your heart is where it should be, and you are helping so many teens, and it's just amazing to see. And thank you so much for all you've done for everybody. So that amazing note, we're going to be all uplifted now. So can you just tell us maybe your website and how people can find you and how they could support your mission if they wanted to?
Oh, that would be fantastic. Yes. Our website is www.happinesshorses.org. And something that's very exciting is we did purchase a 40-acre property, and the possibilities are unlimited.
Very neat. So you're poised for the future.
Yes.
For growth and
We're poised for the future for growth. And that's the big thing, is growth, because the kids need us more than ever. And so that's going to be surrounded. Our capital campaign is building these facilities for them and being able to bring other different types of equine activities in, and hosting different therapeutics and things like that.
All right, Kim, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us today and give us your point of view, because I know you have tons of experience with these teens and you have a huge heart and you're making a great impact. So thank you for all of that, and thanks for sharing your knowledge today with us.
It was my pleasure. Thank you for having me on your podcast.
You're welcome. Have a good day. Remember, parents, we can empower ourselves through education. I believe that knowledge brings power, hope, and light. Let's do all we can to ensure that our children lead the happy, healthy lives that they deserve. This is my mission, and this is my heart. See you next time. Find out more at www.hopefuldawn.com.